Welcome to the Bad Boss Brief. I am Stephanie Peirolo.
And I'm Eugene S. Robinson.
And today we are at episode 68, and I am calling this the gift of being bad at something.
Came to the right place today. There's a running joke amongst jiu-jitsu players. It's not even false modesty. It's like, I do jiu-jitsu and I'm terrible. So this is something I'm quite used to now adopting as a standard pose.
So what we wanted to talk about is the gift of being bad at something, and specifically when, as an adult, you try something new. And because it is something new, you are not very good at it, and you maybe fail, and you maybe look or feel a little bit foolish. And I think that there's some real value to this that we tend to overlook. Is there anything that you have done or started doing as an adult that you were bad at?
Yes. Everybody I do jujitsu with is going, say it. It's like the meme with Michael Caine is nodding. Yeah, I would say, given the amount of time I've invested in Brazilian jiu-jitsu and luta livre, that I should be much better. Like, if you consider my oldest daughter, who will be 30 in January, took her first set steps at a place I used to train jiu-jitsu, can you think of anything else that I would have spent over 30 years on? If I played, I'd be a really great saxophone player if I spent the same amount of time playing saxophone or piano or learning a language, but I've chosen to put all my eggs in the Brazilian jiu-jitsu basket. And, I'm better than the average person. And I've gotten the medals to attest to the fact that I'm better than a lot of people who do it, but I don't feel nearly as competent as I should after 30 years of doing it. But, I do it because I like it. No excuses.
But what about something that, because there is a competence that comes with doing something for a certain period of time. And a lot of us, like, the reason I was thinking about this topic is I have been doing basically the same types of jobs, same types of skills for 30 years. Right. And I can certainly, as you just did, look at ways in which I should be more skillful in certain areas. Like, why don't I know how to do X or Y? But I also understand that I'm doing that. Basically, that's a small piece existing in a sea of competence, that I do what I do well. I have experience doing it. I have a certain amount of competence, and that gives me confidence, right? So I am a pretty confident person anyway, but if I am called to add a new skill set to my existing roster of skills, I walk in thinking, okay, I know this. This is adjacent to skills I already have. And I walk in with a certain amount of confidence. What I'm talking about is doing something where I have no competence, I know nothing, and really getting back to that kind of beginner's mind. And the reason that I thought about this is, as you know, I published a book in May. And I had published a book before, but it was self-published or independently published, as people like to say. And I didn't do much marketing of the book. So I had no actual experience of promoting and marketing a book. And now I have a publisher and they have resources, and I am marketing and publishing a book, which means I am doing something I have never done. I don't have experience doing. And, as most authors, I don't get a lot of support. I mean, my publishers are great. They give me the support that they can, but it's not like I have a team, right? I mean, I don't have a publicist. I don't have people telling me what to do. I'm largely figuring it out. And what's interesting to me is it's caused me to really look at what it feels like as someone who has experience in one area, going into an area where I know nothing, and what it does to my confidence and what it does to my brain, and realizing kind of the shadow and gift of that.
Yeah, it is weird. I mean, I look at it, there's a totality to it, right? I mean, I'm kind of half joking about the jiu-jitsu thing, but there are other arenas in my life in which my knowledge is unassailable. Like, and I've gone through this in a professional way. Like, every job that you could do editorially speaking, I've done, from assistant editor to associate editor to senior editor to tech editor to And I met my Waterloo with managing editor, because there are two types of ways to be managing editor. There's managing editor as a junior editorial director, whereas you're doing, high level overview stuff. Like, this is what's going to go on the issue, and this is where we should focus, and this holiday is coming up, we should address it. And then there's managing editor, that's the traffic cop, that can at any point do spreadsheets and tell you, well, here's for the advertising folks, this is what happens in September, this is what happens in October. And I am not at all that guy, right? So having had all this major award-winning success prior to taking my first managing editor job, and then being like, oh my God, this is what they did. This is what the managing editors who worked for me actually did. There's no creativity. It's just a scheduling job. And, I can carry the schedule in my head like an editorial director or upper level managing editor, but not like the one who was doing the traffic cop. And did it shake me? It just made me avoid managing editor gig jobs in the future, because I knew that was not, they were never going to get out of me what I wanted to give. And what I wanted to give was not what they were wanting. So, you figure this stuff out bit by bit. But with books, my book, the biggest thing for me when I put out my first major publication, which was the fight book on HarperCollins, was to go into those offices and not treat everybody like an idiot, because I'd already done it I'd already put out records. So I thought I knew marketing. I thought I knew PR. I thought I knew all that stuff. And I did, sort of. I mean, without my efforts, I don't think we would have sold nearly as many books. But the weird thing is, something happened in the last 10 years where I finally realized that all of what I knew that was involved in putting out records and publicity and marketing around records, even as it applied to books, was worthless. Somebody said, you should start out, kicking your label again. And I realized there's so many plates spinning now to release a record that I can't do it. I don't know enough to do it. I can't track from Tidal to Apple Music to Spotify to digital to retail to radio to stores to college radio. It's way complicated, and I can't do it. I can't do it anymore. So I don't mind not knowing, as long as now I know what I don't know. I'm okay. I'm okay with that, right? In other words, the managing editor thing, I will not try to have my reach exceed my grasp in regards to marketing or PR as it connects to a book or a record even, because it's gotten way too complicated. So,
well, and what I think about is the idea of everybody is an expert. And what is the value of expertise? Because what I realized is that I had a certain amount of hubris walking into, because I have been in and around marketing and advertising and PR and all of that, those engines, for most of my career. And so I thought, like, kind of, how hard can this be? Until I actually did it and realized, oh, there's a whole bunch of stuff I don't know. And so one thing it has done, it has caused me to reframe my narratives around expertise, right? Like that idea that 10,000 hours gives you expertise. I realized, like, that's actually true. Right? That there's things, I mean, at what Eugene knows, but I'll say to our listeners is I have called Eugene, texted, emailed many times, just say, like, what is the basic, like, what do I do at a book reading? Like, what are the expectations? And so recognizing, like, Eugene has experience that I don't have in this particular area, and recognizing, because I think, and I'm curious what you think about this, Eugene, because I do feel like there has been a kind of flattening of our understanding of expertise, so that, and I think a lot of it has to do with social media, that everybody thinks they are an expert, or that their take on their particular interest is fascinating. And some of those people do get a lot of attention, and they do become influencers, and they do get a following. But I still believe that there are people who are better at things than other people, that not everything is the same.
Well, to weave it back around to jiu-jitsu, I think what I had hoped, and what I remember when I started studying martial arts back when I was 13, was that somebody had once said, you're going to do this so often, it becomes second nature. You won't have to think about it. And I've kind of tried to get to that spot where I don't want to be one of those martial arts grinds. I knew a guy who had a whole flow chart filled up the entire wall of his garage with, if they do this move, I do this move and this move. And I said, that technical academic approach, I don't want to. I want, if somebody jumps on me in the middle of the night, I want to, what is it that I'm going to bring to bear immediately? And so that kind of laissez-faire attitude has actually helped me with the marketing stuff as it connects to the book. I'll tell you, Gilda Squire, who was the great director of PR at HarperCollins when my fight book was coming out, she's telling me stuff. And then, me being the wise guy, I've been doing this for a long time. I'd actually put out a couple of books in magazines even before. And she said, we find that radio converts. And I'm inside my head, I'm doing the universal sign of jerking off. It's like, radio, ha ha. And I stopped myself and I realized that and this is 2007, every single book I had bought that year was bought as a result of a prompt from the radio. Like I'm driving to work, listening to NPR. I go, I should get that book. Click, buy the book. I mean, I bought I think in that year, I bought 13 other books and they were all inspired by stuff I'd heard on the radio. In one or two occasions, stuff that I had read about. I go, oh yeah, I should get that. So I'm willing to have my lack of knowledge, my ignorance, be a boon instead of a bane. Like it's opened me up to say, okay, subject matter experts could be a real thing, and I can at least listen to them, right? I mean, it doesn't hurt to listen to somebody. So,
well, and one of the things that I wondered is, are we as a culture more afraid of trying because we are more afraid of failing? Right. So I was looking at frequently I will open up social media and I will see these, clips, compilations of people falling on their faces. And I keep getting them served up and I don't necessarily find them humorous. And a lot of times they're from Ring cameras. So someone is walking out of their front door and they slip and fall on the ice, or they have a dog on a leash and the dog pulls them over. And so many of the things that we see are, here is a spectacular fail. And it is monetized and shown over and over again, and it shows up. And so I wonder, because if you are going to try something new, then you are going to fail, and you often might look stupid, right? And is it different for people now that it was for us when we were growing up? Because when we were growing up, there weren't cameras in everyone's hands, and we could actually do something outside without the same fear that it was going to be captured and posted on social media to widespread ridicule?
I don't know. I mean, I would say in my case, it's probably whatever happened to me growing up has made me tougher. And I remember, I don't know if you're familiar with this guy, Glenn Danzig. He used to sing for this band, The Misfits, and then had a fairly active social career, solo career, and has been in movies and so on. And his shtick, his brand is that he's a tough guy. And so backstage at a show, he gets confronted by another band. They have words, and he shoves this guy, Danny Mariano, and Danny knocks him out, recorded on video. And this became a massive sensation. I happened to be in the living room of his publicist when it happened. And she was, God bless her, she went immediately into, the damage mode. She was like, it was clear that this guy was a fortune. You're going to sue Glenn. So Glenn decided to get knocked out rather than fight with this guy and get a lawsuit. And I was like, you got to do better than that. I was giving unwarranted PR advice because if fighting, he was legitimately knocked out. So a record label guy calls me and says, Eugene, do you think of that? You got a badass kind of angle of attack. If it happened to you, would that be like that? And I constantly, my whole oeuvre is a meditation on the ways in which I've lost and lose. So no, if you film me falling down the stairs in my house, which could happen, which I'd be like, yeah, I got to take it on the chin. It happens to everybody, right? So it's made me, the things, what you're hinting at, I think, and which I'm definitely afraid of, is to fall down the stairs when I don't get to go down those stairs again, is specifically making a mistake with a book, where it's like, you can always write out in other books, but that book is gone. And, I did actually have that happen when on the fight book, I got a call from the publisher. We need 2 more pages. I was in a dressing room in Brussels and I sat down in the next hour, I wrote 2 pages. And the 2 pages were about knife fighting. And that was what got the book banned in the UK.
Wow.
And the head of HarperCollins UK said to me, "It's too bad. We could have sold 1,000,000."
Wow.
You know, and that is something to be deathly afraid of. It was a killing mistake, you know, and the editor in New York didn't see a problem with it. He didn't know that knife murder in the UK was a thing that was happening, and, you know, that we were going to get dragged in front of Parliament if we put it in a book and some kid read the book and then stabbed somebody. And they were inner pages too. So it's not like you could even cut the pages out. So there you go. Killing mistake. I am deathly afraid of those kind of mistakes. Deathly afraid of those. Because, you know, that's it. That was it for the fight book. That's it. It's not like I can go write another fight book for the UK. That's 1,000,000 copies not sold. So yeah, those I'm definitely afraid of. And it's not so much of looking stupid in that instance, but it's just of, you know, like Eminem said, you got one shot. And that's my shot. I mean, I've had other shots. I've had other books out, but, you know, HarperCollins, that was a big one. So,
Right. Oh, that's so interesting. I hadn't heard that story before. And I mean, I guess,
really? Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
no.
Yeah.
I mean, that's wow. Yeah. Well, and I guess the things that I was thinking about, I just want to talk about like why I have felt that this experience of being bad at something is valuable. And why I would actually invite, because I mean, this is the Bad Boss Brief, but I think a lot of people that listen to it want to be better bosses or have an intention to show up at work. And I would really advise people to try doing something completely new. And I think the easiest thing that we have access to as adults is a sport or a hobby. Like if you've never played the piano and you've wanted to start playing the piano, try surfing, you know, just pick up something you've never done. Because what I found that has been helpful to me is, you know, it did definitely give me more humility, which I always think is a good thing. Humility is different from humiliation. It's just recognizing just because I have competence over here doesn't mean that I have competence across the board, which has made me a little bit more open to people who are trying skills they've never tried before. Right. So I do a lot of corporate trainings. And when I do trainings on presentation skills, I say to people, this is going to be uncomfortable because we are paying attention to our bodies, to our voices, how we sound. But I don't realize that like anybody trying something new is going to be uncomfortable, right? Whatever that skill is, right? And so recognizing many people in the corporate world are not coming from a place of competence and confidence, and just to be aware of that. And then, as I mentioned, like it did make me open to being taught, right? Like whether it was asking you for advice or, you know, searching for resources online. I paid some people for advice, some of which was helpful, but being in that sort of like learning student mindset, also, I think it just uses a different part of your brain. Like I'm learning something, right?
Also that humility, it's made. I remember talking to a woman. I wanted to bring her in to our jiu-jitsu academy to help fighters specifically with a certain type of stretching. And I said, "Do you know what jiu-jitsu is?" She's, "Oh, yeah." And I knew that she had no idea. I knew she was thinking taekwondo or karate or something. And I said, "Well, it's a grappling art. I'm trying not to be insulting." And she goes, "Oh yeah, you know the thing with the." And it was a weird kind of defensiveness, and I was like, I just dropped it. I didn't bring it up again. I didn't want to, she would have a quick study would have gotten there and seen what was going on and figured it out. But I didn't like the knee jerk de facto. I know what's going on. And so and it's helped me frame my angle of attack as well. I feel perfectly okay. So please explain it to me. Explain it to me like I know nothing, because I don't. So I feel okay. Doing that, especially if it's something new.
Well, and it's a real power move, right? So for me, when I am in a position of power, if I'm managing people or I don't know, whatever, doing a training, leading a retreat, to say, I've never heard of that. Can you explain it to me? That sounds really interesting. Gosh, I'm not familiar with that. To admit that you don't know something is an odd power move. And I think because it shows I have so much confidence that I can ask for more information. I'm open to learning. And it not only is it a good thing to model in front of an audience or a retreat group or whatever, but it's also a really good lesson for people who are coming up in their career that, you know, to say, I haven't heard that acronym before. What does that stand for?
Yep. Yep.
I'm not familiar with that phrase. What does that mean? Is actually a sign of confidence. And then you avoid the challenge of not knowing what it is, right? So like,
Yep.
presumably the woman that you were talking to about the stretching for jujitsu could have done a more effective job if
Yep.
she knew what it was, right? And maybe
Yep.
she didn't even get hired because she didn't demonstrate the openness to figuring out,
Exactly.
like what to do. And so I
Right.
think having that, the awareness to recognize asking for help, admitting that you don't know something isn't a sign of weakness. It's conversely a sign of strength, is something that I think everybody at every level in business can understand.
Yeah. And I remember the last time I did that in a professional setting. And I was like, why even fake this? And I don't know if you've EBITDA. I'm sure that's not the way you say it. EBITDA. Have you heard this before as an acronym?
EBITDA.
Yeah, EBITDA. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, EBITDA. Yeah.
Okay, so earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, right? So I had no idea. I didn't go to biz school. I'm not a finance reporter, and I had to ask in a professional setting. Well, I didn't have to, but I chose to ask one of my arch enemies, and he used it in a finance meeting. And I said, "I'm sorry, I didn't go to biz school. What is that an acronym for?" And he was tempted to do what an adversary would do, which is to snort and then give me the answer. But I was looking at him the whole time. I was fairly frank about not knowing. And you're right. It ended up being actually a power move. He answered me very seriously, and the conversation moved on, and I did not take a hit for not knowing. So,
well, and the other thing, there are the circumstances where you don't want to do that. So the one time early in my career, I had been working in advertising sales. My boss moved up to a new television station in Seattle, and she hired me for a sales position. And it happened really quickly. She said, "Come up to Seattle, meet with the bosses." And I was living in a small town south of Seattle. So I come up and I, like ready. It's the job interview, but it's dinner and cocktails and very advertising sales thing. And so I know it's a sales job, but that's all I know. And they keep talking about NSM. And I'm like, I have no idea what that is. But I got that NSM was somehow connected to this position. So I didn't say, I don't know what an NSM is, because that was the job I was trying to get hired for. And it was one of these like huge leaps in salary and position. And I'm going from a small town in rural Washington to, like a big Seattle station. So I just nodded as if I knew. And then afterwards, I told my old boss, who was the one hiring me, I'm like, what the hell is an NSM? She's like, it's National Sales Manager. That's your job. So that was a circumstance just to acknowledge there are times where it is appropriate.
But you didn't say in the meeting. You did not out yourself in the meeting.
Yeah. No, because it was the job. I think this is the senior management at this new TV station. I didn't want to be like, yeah, I'm here for a job. I don't even know what the acronym is for the job. But to be fair, I got the NSM job and I did very well at it. And
you've never forgotten what NSM is.
No.
And nor will we now at this point in time, man.
Exactly.
Right?
And then I think the other thing that I'm recognizing is that it can reframe my understanding and give me some new awareness, right? So again, I often talk for a living. I have been on stages talking. I, teach people how to do presentations. We have a podcast. Words are my thing, and how words come out of my mouth are also my thing. And so I just finished recording my audiobook for my new book, The Saint and the Drunk. I'm supposed to say that more on the podcast. I have a book. It's called The Saint and the Drunk. Anyway, I finished recording it and I thought this was going to be a breeze, right? I've been on the radio. We've got this podcast. We've done so many, all these things. So I learn about it and I approach it new, but I feel pretty confident until I start getting like notes from the audio engineer. And I find out that what I thought was just going to be figure out some skills on pacing or, energy or whatever. There are words I can't fucking say that I never knew I couldn't say.
This is
Text.
sounds like legal department stuff. What kind of words?
No, not words that I'm not allowed to say. I say text. Like, what does that word mean? It sounds like TECH, a shortening of technology, but it is
Right.
actually text. I dropped the T on text. I wrote a whole book on decision making. And as I was reading it, I found out that I say decision.
That's wild.
So, because I speak quickly, which I know, having done great, I always have this in my mind, like talk more slowly. But I didn't realize that I get lazy and I know the word and I don't articulate, which I can get away with in person or even on a podcast because it's in context. If you're looking at me, you can see my face moving, you can see my hands moving. But if you're just listening to my voice as I am reading an entire book about decision making, you are going to notice if I'm slurring the word decision. And what I realized is that this is a new skill. So now I am definitely mindful about how I say certain words. And after having finished reading the entire book, I feel like I'm more adept at it. But recognizing that over time, I got lazy. And because I speak quickly and because my mind works really quickly, I leave the ends of words off, which, the way that people with a Southern accent will leave the G off of ing, right? I'm going there. Well, but you can't you can't get rid of whole sections of words when you are. And then, it also makes me think about how does that show up in, because I know that people who are, sometimes it's hard for people to track if I speak really quickly. But there's also the accessibility issue of people who are hard of hearing, who don't have English as a first language. How the hell are they gonna be able to understand what I'm saying?
Well, this is the emotion. I mean, in my audio book, I focused on emotional impact, but I don't have, I had a mother who would interrupt me with great frequency and say, speak clearly and enunciate. I can't do this mush mouth thing. I don't understand what you're saying. I was like, okay. So, but for the Fight Book audiobook, which is the only one that I've done, I tried to, I tried to give it a dramatic. So even if you couldn't really quite make out what I said, you would get the sense of, but our books are very different. Yours is, you're trying to impart real knowledge. I'm just telling stories. So it was an interesting, it's been an interest. And there are two words that I'm deathly afraid of, even to this day. And it's just how my brain works. And that if I see the word coming, I have to calm down and prepare to say it correctly. Because since I've been about 9 years old, I have not been able to do it. One word is hallelujah. For whatever reason, and then the other word is union. For whatever weird reason is, I will always screw up these words if I don't prepare for them before I get to them. And I discovered that in a weird way when I did Code Magazine and we had Halle Berry on the cover. And the headline I used was hallelujah. And somebody in the staff goes, what? And I go, the cut line should be, and I screwed it up like 3 times in a row. I just had to write it on the whiteboard. I was like, so much for, being stupid in public. There you go. I mean, everybody did it. Nobody wanted to say anything at that point because clearly I was in the grips of some weirdness. So they just kind of sat back, and I was the boss. They sat back and let me do it. And I wrote it. And they go, oh, hallelujah. And I go, yeah, that word. It's weird. Oh my God.
But I think that is part of the challenge when those things happen is to stop ourselves and concentrate. Right.
Yeah.
And that there can be that anticipatory dread of whatever the word is. I always have trouble with remuneration. Which I always wanted to be.
That has to do with money, so I never had problems with that.
I can't. I'm not good with that one. So, but I think it's the difference. Like I do have a tendency to mush mouth, as your mom said. And part of that is I'm rushing. I'm going too quickly. And you just naturally, when you speak, don't do that. Right. And so it's just, and again, it's a simple thing. I do a lot of warm-up exercises. Like I do walk around saying, she sells seashells by the seashore. And Peter Piper picked a pickled peppers throughout to warm up because, again, I'm not above warm-ups. I'm not above doing all of these things. So anyway, that was what
my sister, who's won a Grammy for singing, says she meditates on the color blue. And I thought, this is such garbage. And then I did it and it worked.
She meditates before she performs?
Before she sings, because I was having, we just did this tour where we had, I don't know, like 24 dates in a row. And I was having a hell of a time with my voice because, it's shouty, loud music. And she goes, oh, this is breath control, which she schooled me on breath control. And then she said, and meditate on the color blue. So when you approach, you're relaxed. And it's actually worked. It's worked for me. So
that and Fisherman's Friends throat lozenges, which a friend of mine who is a singer recommended to me. I'm all about the Fisherman's Friend. All right. That's what we've got time for today. Thanks very much for joining us. If you have any ideas for future shows or questions, WTF at Bad Boss Brief. I read every single one. WTF, Bad Boss Brief. And we will see you in a couple weeks. Thanks. Bye.
Adios.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Bad Boss Brief podcast with your host, Eugene S. Robinson and Stephanie Peirolo. You can check out more of their work by visiting speirolo.substack.com for Stephanie and eugenesrobinson.substack.com for Eugene. You can also find Eugene at Mr. Sleep 3, that's the number 3, on Insta. Reach out with your questions, concerns, work case situations, or suggestions to us at WTF@badbossbrief.com. Stephanie will personally answer every single submission. Be sure to join us at badbossbrief.substack.com every other Wednesday for new episodes of the Bad Boss Brief so you can gain further insights into your workplace environments. Until next time, don't be an asshole at work.